Satpal Singh Bhai, welcome to the Ranveer Show. Such an honor having you on the show. I love the message that you're putting out in the world. I love the way you're a modern representation of the spiritual school of Sikhism. And for me, this conversation is all about learning much more about Sikhism. For me, this conversation is about learning about your journey. And for me, this conversation is about just putting some goodness out there for the world to consume. So, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much for having me, Ranveer. It's a real pleasure. I've been following your content for quite a while, and it's so inspirational how you've taken the younger generation on your own spiritual journey and how much you're exposing people to what it means to live a busy modern life, but still have that spirituality at your core. So it's a real honor for me to be on your show as well. I'm really inspired by the work that you do.
No, the admiration, the inspiration, the honor, it's all mutual. Trust me. But you mentioned something specific. You mentioned how it's important to have that spiritual core when you're going about your modern day life. I feel modern day life, especially considering where we are as a race of human beings, it's all about speed and pace and power to some degree. You're supposed to kind of run at it with life, be it your career, be it any kind of growth. Someone once told me that if you do want to run with speed and you do want to help other people, that means there's going to be a loss of energy from you and your mind and your body. And therefore, you need to gain that energy back from somewhere else. Think of it like a petrol pump for your mind and your body and your soul. So that's how I look at spiritual learnings or even spiritual practices like meditation, like prayer. That's what all this is for me. Somewhere it is a practical, selfish kind of intention in my heart.
Absolutely. And I think what's really fascinating is bringing spirituality into every aspect of your life. I grew up where religion was really just something you did on a Sunday. You went to the Gurdwara, you went to the temple, and then Monday to Saturday, you just get on with normal life. There's no part of the spirituality which feeds into your normal life. That's how I was just brought up, where something was just a add-on. Religion was just something that you added on to your life. Whereas as I've grown up, I've begun to realize that actually, if you begin to understand that spirituality is really just a mindset, then that mindset needs to be carried through into everything that you do. And more importantly, it's about how you interact with everything. How do you interact with stress? How do you interact with the pressures of your boss giving you too many things to do at work? How do you deal with things in life happening that don't go according to plan, or people not acting in the way that you would like them to? All of that is spirituality to me. It's not really something to do with a different religion or something that you just add on a Sunday.
Yeah, 100%. Even speaking about religions, I feel like every single religion in the world basically says the same things, and it's probably interpreted differently. But what every religion says is, be a good person, help out others, help out your community, do the right thing. While I know that your message is much more spiritual, for me, the selfish angle on this conversation is I want to learn about Sikhism deeper. So for this conversation, just imagine I'm your younger brother who's just entered this world, and teach me about Sikhism, Satpal Bhai. Like, I would just love to know what it is for you specifically. Be it the stories related to Sikhism, be it what it stands for in the modern day context. What is it for you?
I think Sikhism has something that has massively transformed my own personal life. And everything that I talk about is very much based on something that I've experienced personally. And I think that's the beauty of it. I grew up in quite a normal Punjabi Sikh family. And for me, religion was something that I never questioned. My parents said that we belong to this religion. I said, fine. There is a God, fine. You just have to learn, go to your Punjabi class on a Sunday so you learn how to read your native language, fine. I had no problem with all of those things, and I never questioned it. I never had an issue with my own personal identity or anything like that. But as I grew up and I started to learn that there was a really deeply personal aspect to it, where it wasn't about just some religious facts that you had to learn and some actions that you had to perform, but it was really something to do with who you are and how you understand yourself. I began to understand it as a psychology. And once I understood it as a mindset, and once I began to practice meditation in myself, the impact that it had on my life was so huge that I became almost like this excited little kid, like I had found some buried treasure and I just needed to tell everyone, hey, you've all been missing it. There's something amazing right here. So in my own journey, what I realized was 99% of the Sikhs that I knew had no idea of what the spiritual message was really about. They had no idea what their religion was about, even though they had been attending all the religious festivities their whole life. And once I understood how it was really about personal transformation, I couldn't help but try and help other people. My whole motivation just became, how do I go about and teach people what it means to have some God in your life, which is not some guy out there, but actually a fundamental aspect of who you are. And I think this is where I was really motivated to go deeper into the philosophy of Sikhism, to go into what Guru Nanak, who is the founder of this tradition, was really talking about, and to then figure out a way, how does this apply to me and how does this apply to other people? And that's just been my whole motivation.
So what are some of those aspects? What are some of those philosophies? Like, you said that 99% of practicing Sikhs may not know about the spiritual angles of it. Could you shed some light on those spiritual angles?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing I realized was this old way of thinking, or my immature way of thinking, was that God was some guy out there who you just go to pray for things. So God was always an impersonal being that was out there in the sky. I like to think of it as an old man with a white beard sitting in the clouds, your typical idea of what a God is. And what I was realizing was most youngsters completely rejected that. By the time you reach the age of about 13, I've spoken to so many of them, and they say that I'm an atheist. Because by the age of 13, they said, the God that everyone keeps talking about, I haven't heard about it. It doesn't make any sense to me. And when I began to meditate and understand that there isn't a God out there, or more accurately, the God that is out there is also in here. And so the first message that Guru Nanak brought to the world was this message of oneness. And most Sikhs interpret that as there is one God. There isn't multiple gods, there's one God. But the reality is oneness is something quite different to one God. And where I began to understand it was, this body, mind, this thing that I call me is actually not me. And as I began to understand, it made me realize that all the things that I call me are nothing to do with me. So if you just take the example, let's look at this body. Did I make this body? And you say, no, I didn't make this body. It was just given to me. Did I choose my own name? No, I didn't even choose my own name. Did I choose my religion? No, I didn't. So what you begin to realize is all the things that you think is me, my identity, I began to realize none of these things are me. And so it led me on this quest. Well, is there really a me? And the teachings of Guru Nanak made me understand that the idea of me is the cause of all my problems. And I was able to reduce and simplify Guru Nanak's message into really a message of oneness, which was that we don't know who we are, and who we think we are is making us miserable. And that was the big change in my life, that I think I am me. And because I think I am me, it makes my life full of misery, because there are so many things that come with me. Me then says, well, I want this and I want that. So I have ambition, I have desires, I have frustration that life is not going according to my plan. And once you begin to realize the root cause of all of that is me, this idea that I think I am, once you're able to let go of something so close to you, which is me, you begin to realize there is no me. All that there is oneness. And that's quite an uncomfortable thing for most people. Most people are saying, well, I'm happy with being me. I don't want to let go of me. I quite like me. I just want to change everybody else. I don't want to change myself. And I realized that the biggest problem in life was really this idea of me. And over time, I just got more and more fascinated by trying to dissolve this idea of me, letting go, constantly letting go of all these things which attach onto the me, my negative thinking, my self-imposed limiting beliefs, all of these pressures that I have about, I think life should be like this and like that. And every time life doesn't turn out that way, I feel depressed, I feel anxious, I feel worried. And so it's not that I've solved all those problems in my life. I'm just able to catch myself now every time that I do that. And that's what Sikhism has really taught me, that you're able to live a totally different way of life compared to what the media and society and your parents tell you. There's a completely different way of living.
Yeah. I'd like to kind of bring in a teaching from the Buddha. He said that every kind of sadness arises out of either expectation or ego. And that's pretty much kind of in line with what you're saying. Even expectation comes from a place of ego. I want that thing. But the key word is I. I want that thing because it'll give me happiness. And it's kind of a very deep spiritual lesson you've touched upon, which you may not even learn in the beginning of your own spiritual journey. It takes you some time to understand that. I also feel that this concept of God, I think it's Ikonkar, the concept you're basically talking about. And I'd love to hear what Ikonkar means to you specifically, and when you had that switch when it came to the meaning of Ikonkar. For me, I feel God is a very personal thing. It's different for everyone. It's subjective for everyone. Someone might visualize something. Someone might think of God in a certain way. What I've come to realize after 6 years of meditation and really opening up spiritually is that I feel there's some sort of an energy or a light inside you. And it's inside everybody. Even the most evil people, even the worst human beings have that energy or light inside them. And the spiritual journey just brings you closer to that light. Think of a road that goes and hits that light. The more spiritual you get, the cleaner that road gets. And that's why the habits of meditation, that's why the habits of treating people better. It cleans up and smoothens out that road to finding that light inside you. Do you look at it in a similar way? Or, I mean, I'd love to know your subjective opinion on this.
Absolutely. For me, how it begun was exactly how you're describing it, was that God was no longer out there. God was something that was within me. But the more I've studied, the more I've meditated on it, I've begun to realize that God is not just something that's within me. In fact, it's absolutely everything. And the way I try to describe it is, it's as though a fish is swimming around and trying to ask all the other fish, where's this water that everyone keeps talking about? And the idea is that this becomes so difficult to see because the fish can't see the water. He's in the water. He's breathing it in. Every time he opens his mouth, the water is there. He's made of water. And it becomes a realization that if you're going searching for God, as soon as you do that, you've lost the plot. You've gone the wrong direction. And the first realization is to understand that every single thing, physical and non-physical, is God. So this is where, if we take these ideas of sarguna and nirguna, that which is formless and that which has form, absolutely everything is God. So the idea of oneness now becomes, what isn't God? And that becomes a very interesting question, because as long as you say God is something inside me, what it allows is for some part of you to be not God. So you can say, yeah, God is the good part of me, but I have some bad parts as well. And what you do is you retain your ego. And Guru Nanak's philosophy is all about complete self-destruction, to the point at which there is zero part of you that you can call you. This is not my hand. This is not my body. This is not my mind. These are not my thoughts. This is not my past. This is not my family. This is not my future. And that, for most people, is almost a step too far. But the gurus and all the spiritual masters of all traditions have basically said, if you want to know God, you have to completely dissolve in it. It's like you can't keep reading about the ocean and doing lectures on the ocean and doing exam papers on the ocean, but you've never been there. You've never swam in the ocean. You've never tasted it. You've never felt it. The best way to know the ocean is to go and swim. And you have to dissolve in the ocean, and then you begin to really understand what it is. And so this is the best way to understand what God is God isn't a one thing. In fact, everything is God. And this is where oneness really starts to make sense, that it is absolutely everything and everywhere. So right now it's God talking to God. It's not me talking to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And when you have that mental switch, it also brings a lot of peace to what you call your mind. That's one aspect of it. Satpal bhai, from a practical perspective, if there's someone who's listening to this conversation and is asking themselves that, how do I actually begin to view this world that way? How do I begin to unlearn all the things I've been told since I was a child? What's the practical way of going about it? Is there a kind of meditation you do to perceive the world in a certain way? I mean, I strongly believe that we're living inside a simulation, and that kind of encompasses a lot of the things that you said right now. That you need to begin viewing the world as a simulation, and you're just playing a role. Because if you don't view the world as a simulation, you're again feeding into your ego and your sense of what you've learned till this point in life. But the moment you start looking at people as pieces of yourself, you start treating people better. What you put out there starts returning to you. You start living a much easier, better life. And of course, then there's a whole journey you can go on where it's about meditation, it's about habits, it's about things you eat, the kind of exercises you do. That just kind of strengthens that idea of God being all around you. That's what the world of yoga says as well, that you get connected to your body more, you get connected to that inner source of energy more. But what's a practical way of beginning this process of changing your reality?
This is a really interesting question. I'll give you the example of, if you wanted to make a stool, what's the minimum number of legs that it needs in order for it to be stable? Let's take that example. If you have a stool with just one leg, it's not going to be very stable. You can try and sit on it, but you'll have to be doing a lot of the balancing yourself. You'll use your legs to try and balance it, but the stool won't support you. You add a second leg, it might work. As soon as you add 3 legs, you can sit on it comfortably, and all 3 legs are supporting you. And Guru Nanak introduces 3 different things that you need in order to be able to practically experience this. The first is, you need to have the wisdom. You need to have access to this wisdom. The second is, you need a practice. And the third is, you need to spend time with other people who are also practicing this. So we can call that Gyan, the wisdom, Dhyan, the practice, and Sangat, the people, the spiritual people who are in your community. Call it a spiritual community. And he says, these are the 3 things that you need. Now let's look at what happens in the world right now, where you have yoga, which is a practice that has exploded all over the world, but it's being taught without the gyan, without the wisdom, without the deep spiritual knowledge. And without that spiritual knowledge, what you end up getting is things like goat yoga, beer yoga, so many ridiculous types of yoga that are out there, so-called yoga, because they're trying to position yoga in a very secular way, that, oh, well, there's no religious side of it. It's just good for your body. It's good for your health. And what you're getting is really an insult to what yoga really is, the deep spiritual meaning of what yoga really is. So you can't segregate these 3 things. In order to start really living it, I always think of this example that if you wanted to be an entrepreneur, one of the things that you would do is you would start studying the best entrepreneurs in the world. You'd start reading the background of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Musk, Elon Musk, and people like that. If you wanted to be a really good musician, you start to go and get training from another musician, and you spend time with other music practitioners. So what is it that we're trying to do? If you want spiritual wisdom, then you have to spend time with the spiritual masters. And these are the Kabirs, the Farids, the Namdevs, the Guru Nanaks of the world. Once you spend time with them, you not only just learn the practice, but you also learn where a practice is going wrong. And then you go back and you say, Guruji, can you tell me what I did this? And then you read some more of the wisdom, and then you realize, this is where I fell down. This is where my practice is letting me down. So I think there are 3 things that you need. Meditation, I'm a massive believer in, but meditation on its own, I believe, without the wisdom, can actually increase your ego. it can increase your sense of self-importance. So you have to have that guru there, that teacher there, that really humbles you, that tells you every time you're doing something wrong and actually gives you that little bit of groundedness. And you need that other community of people that are just supporting you, saying, yeah, this meditation is not working right now. And that community tells you, well, I try this now, try this. You need all three angles. And that, I think, is the most important thing if you really want to progress in this.
Satpal Bhai, you said something very interesting right now about how meditation without the right guidance or the right information could actually lead to your ego swelling up. So again, in the world of yoga, there's a concept called siddhis, which means that as you meditate, your inner world becomes much calmer. And as your inner world becomes much calmer, it leads to sort of your mind unlocking its own abilities. Now, some people might experience those abilities and think to themselves, oh, I'm becoming smarter. Oh, I'm becoming capable of this. Oh, now when someone's in front of me, I can scan them, from A to Z. Is that what you meant by your own ego swelling up, where you experience these so-called superpowers and you think that you're doing something great? That's one part of the question. The second part of the question is, what are some of those things that you've experienced through your own journey, and how you corrected those? Because I'm sure even you must have gone down a path of your ego slightly swelling up and you having to correct yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly what the idea of ego swelling up means, that without having a master there to keep your ego in check, it's very easy for you to increase this idea of self-importance. Look how great I am. I'm meditating. I'm better than you. I've got a golden ticket to heaven. I'm definitely going to go there now, but look at you. And so this is where, for me anyway, Guru Nanak's philosophy has massively impacted my life, because when you read some of his wisdom, he does not allow room for even one shred of ego. He completely destroys the ego at every moment, because he's so convinced that ego is the biggest barrier to you connecting with oneness, God, divine, whatever it is, that your sense of self-importance, that I am something. It's very interesting that the ego is so subtle and so easy to trip you up. There's another side of the ego which you may not even catch. One is the spiritual ego, which you've talked about, that I'm better than you, that I can do all these spiritual things. But you can also have another ego, which is, I'm such a sinner. Look how small I am. I'm nothing. I'm humble. I'm nothing. But even if you do that, you retain a little bit of I am. At least I am. I'm a sinner, but at least I am. And Guru Nanak doesn't allow for this at all. So his whole philosophy is constantly teaching you, nothing is you. Learn to let go at every single level, that nothing belongs to you. No part of this belongs to you. The very idea that you exist is an absolute fallacy. It's just false. And only when you go into your meditation, and there are many different meditation techniques that essentially ask this question, who am I? Who are you? And when you meditate on that idea, you realize, I can't actually find the thing that I call me. Yet all the time that I'm driving around and walking around and speaking to people, I believe I'm in control of this body. But when you close your eyes and you start to introspect, you realize, I can't find this thing called me. And that's where you realize the delusion of me itself. It's not actually there when you go look for it.
I do have a supplemental question, which is related to competition in the middle of all this. And I personally feel like competition is of two kinds. One's with your other competitors, people who are competing with you, say, in your same career. Now, for some people, that might be kind of the forefront of their motivation, that I need to beat this person, etc. That isn't the case for a lot of people. Like for me, I'm not a very competitive person. I look at everyone as friends around me. But what I do compete with is my own past, where maybe I didn't achieve what I wanted to. Maybe I didn't have the childhood that I wanted. And I'm constantly competing with myself to get ahead of that darker past. And I feel, especially after talking to you, I feel even that is wrong, because you're being harsh on yourself. So I'd love to know what the spiritual angles on competition are, because we honestly see competition bringing out our country and our culture as a whole, that I am better than you. My thought is better than yours. My political belief is better than yours. My religious belief is better than yours. But that's just going to be a source of misery for you and your mind. And we've also got influences from the West. And again, I'm not using the West to say that that's how they think wrong and this is how we think right. But there are a lot of Western influences which really highlight competition as a forefront. The Last Dance featuring Michael Jordan, or when you see your favorite athletes talk about competition, it fuels competition mindsets in a young person watching sport. So in this world that teaches you to be more competitive and is built out to make you competitive, how do you kind of break past that?
That's fascinating, because when we look at the most successful people in the world, the most competitive people in the world, let's look at the billionaires of the world. The question I always ask is, are the richest people in the world the happiest people in the world? And we all know deep in our heart that they're not the happiest people. Yes, they have a lot of material wealth, but there's also very high levels of depression at the people who have so-called succeeded, either in business or in sports or in the arts or in any part of their career. Because what you've done for such a long time is misery has been fueling you. So I'm not happy now. I will only be happy when this level is achieved. And because you even if you achieve that level, the practice that you've been doing every day is, I'm not happy, I'm not happy, I'm not happy. So guess what happens when you actually reach that level? You're still in that mindset of, I'm not happy. There are very few people out there that have said, I've made all the money I want to make, I'm done. Or I've reached the level of success that I've done, that I needed to, and I'm done. Most people who do that all of their life, they are so wrapped up in constantly trying to achieve more that they've let their mental health completely deteriorate. And I'm sure with so many people that you've interviewed, you've realized that the successful people are still not mentally healthy. They're still struggling on that aspect of it. So it goes back to asking yourself a very personal question. Why do I want to compete? What is at the root driver for me? Is it happiness? Is it something else? Is it to please my parents? What is it? And so you realize that if happiness is your goal, save yourself the trouble. Realize right now that you can achieve material success, competitive success, but you will not get happiness in that particular method. So then you have to ask yourself the question, am I willing to do that? Am I willing to compromise my own sanity and mental health for all of those potential worldly gains? And this is something where religion and spirituality is at this point not trying to be prescriptive. It won't at any point tell you, don't go out and chase a career. It won't tell you, don't do these things. It'll tell you, these are the things that you need to sort out right now. And if you can sort them out, then let those other things come in. But these worldly things are not going to be the things that give you the deepest happiness, because the reality is, whatever you achieve in life, you're not going to be able to take it with you. Absolutely everything, including having perfect fitness with your body, having a perfect house and a great car and a perfect family and great career, none of those things are actually going to last. So you're building all of your happiness on these very shaky foundations. So the spiritual wisdom is always saying, it doesn't matter what you do. Go ahead and do those things. That's not the problem. But while you're doing it, can you be centered? Can you be still and happy? And can you be happy right now in this moment? And not have to think about the next moment as delivering happiness. It's that whole if only. We're always living, if only this happened, if only that happened. And just from my own personal life, I've seen so many of those if onlys, and I still struggle with them sometimes. I still have career ambitions. There's still things that I want to achieve. But in my mind, I catch myself when I see that, have you fallen into that trap again? Do you somehow believe that happiness is over there? Happiness is tomorrow? And then I have to remind myself, no, happiness is available to me right now. Peace and bliss is available right now. And every human being at the root of it is really only chasing peace. And what we don't know is that peace is inside of us. We think that peace comes when you have all of these things. And I think that's the only way that I can answer the question around competition, is figure out why you're trying to compete.
I mean, the kind of practical way I've gone about this in my own recent past is, if I'm feeling any sense of competition, any sense of feeling lesser, any sense of feeling anger or greed or any emotion that I think that shouldn't be there in my mind, I go into a deep meditation session. And for me, that's what works. And by the end of that meditation, I'm fine. I have both contentment and inner strength to a certain degree. And the reason I bring this up is this is the kind of benefit of 6 years of meditation, 5, 6 years of it. When you meditate in the long term, that session of your meditation becomes a safe place for you. And if you are feeling those negative emotions, it's like going in for a shower. You've got dirt on you, you just like wash it off. So that's one practical kind of angle on this that I wanted to highlight. But Satpal Bhai, you mentioned about things that you take with you after your own death. And I know that, every spiritual person consciously has this moment where they start thinking a lot about death. And it's a subject that I've thought a lot about over the last 2 years, seeing the amount of death we've seen in the world with COVID. I've thought of my own death. I've thought of the death of my loved ones, my teams, the people closest to me. What I have strongly started believing in is a concept of rebirth. I do feel that things will begin again, things will reboot again. What do you think about rebirth? Is it something you think about consciously? Because it'll be about. They say that your rebirth and your next birth is decided based on what you've done in this birth. I have two questions for you. One is your opinion on rebirth. The second is, why is someone born as a Sikh? Why is someone born as a Hindu? Why is someone born as a Buddhist, a Muslim? Why is someone born in a tribe in Africa? Why is someone born in some other kind of religion? What do you think decides all that? Do you think Sikhs are born often as Sikhs again? I'd love to know your opinion on this.
It's interesting that death is so intertwined with many spiritual traditions, and becoming comfortable with your own death is seen as a fundamental part of any spiritual practice. Being comfortable with the idea that this entire story that I've built about my life story, this whole character, I am like this and I am like that, and I want to achieve all these things, all of those are going to end. When I look at the Guru's teachings, Guru Nanak's teachings, one of the things they try to do is they remind us that death is always hanging over you. They give the example that a crane is a type of bird that's standing very still and looking at the water. He looks like he's meditating, but really he's keeping really still so that he can catch the fish. And he says that's what people are like, that people are thinking that they're meditative, but in reality, what they're doing is they're trying to just always grab more things out of life. And he says that crane doesn't realize that while he's busy fishing and trying to grab the fish and trying to grab life, there's a hawk that's flying around his head, and the hawk can come and grab him at any time. So the idea that death is going to happen to you is not only a absolute fact, but a fact that we don't like to think about is that it can happen at any time. So in my own practice, how I've become comfortable with death, and I'll move on to the rebirth question that you had as well. How I've become comfortable with death is that every single day, there is a chance that I may die. And in fact, my personal practice is I wake up every morning, and one of the mantras that I say to my head is, today could be the day that I die. And I become very comfortable with that idea that today could be the day. Today is no more or any less special. Even though I'm perfectly healthy, and we all know so many people who were perfectly healthy one day and then the next day they were gone. And so you have to become very comfortable with this idea. And that also helps with your previous question around life and achievement. I'm saying, well, today could be the day that I die. And I'm very comfortable with that idea. One of the things I try to do when it comes to me personally trying to help anyone with spirituality is I only talk about things that I absolutely have experienced. And what I'm very open about is I haven't experienced what the next life is going to be. And the only way that I've reconciled it in my own mind is I have so many things to sort out in this life. I have a mindset that I need to sort out. I have a spiritual journey in this life. I honestly couldn't care less what happens in the next life. As far as I'm concerned, the body goes back into the ground. The air goes back with air. Life energy goes back into life energy. And then that same life energy is then recycled. So in this whatever we can call it, let's call it the soul, for example, whatever this energy is that's inside of us has to have come from somewhere. And when it goes back, and it goes back to the universe itself. And it makes me think about the lessons that you learned in your very first science lessons about energy, that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only move from one form to another form. And I think about life energy in the same way. And that's how I have begun to understand what reincarnation is. It makes absolutely scientific sense that if there is some sort of ball of energy that's inside me, that's keeping me alive, when that energy leaves, where is it going to go? It has to go into everything. And actually, that's how I see the people who have passed on, that they haven't disappeared. In fact, they're in the plants, they're in the birds that are flying around, they're in all of the animals and the trees. Life energy must continue. It really is a harmony that is something that you're going to go into as well. You have to go back into Mother Nature, and Mother Nature will then do whatever it wants with you. Whether there's a soul that then travels into another one, for me, I say I have no experience with that. I'm too busy trying to sort out this life to work out what's going to happen with the next life. And in the same way, I think some questions, we can come up with our own theories. Why was I born like this? Why was I born into this family? But the truth is, they're just going to be speculation. It's just you and me trying to rationalize some things that are beyond our understanding. There's a really nice example that says, why are leaves green? And you can say, well, the leaves are green because of chlorophyll and this and that. But that doesn't answer why they're green. That just answers how they are green. But the why is beyond our understanding. Some things are just the way they are. And one of the main teachings that Guru Nanak gives in one of the earliest verses in the spiritual text called the Guru Saheb, he says that nobody can explain how the universe works. Hukmi hovan akar, hukum na kahiya jai. He calls the universal law. He says the universal law continues to create, but it cannot be explained. These things we can rationalize and try to come up with our own theories. But the reality is we are here now. That's the only thing that you know as a fact. I am here now, and I'm not interested in beliefs. I'm not interested in some belief system, why I was like this or where I believe I will go. I'm interested, can I make the most of this moment right now? And so it allows you to just let go of even some of that spiritual debates that sometimes we love to get into. It allows you to let go of all of those things and say, I have no ability to answer that question. That is, life is just the way it is. And it allows you to just become very harmonious with whatever life is doing. You say, whatever life does, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think the concept of humility in one's mind causes you to understand that your mind isn't capable of understanding everything. The true knowledge is knowing that you know nothing. But with the stuff that you do know, you try doing your best with that. Like everyone was not born to be a bowler. You know, some people are just born to be batsmen. That's what I'd say. So if you're just born to be a batsman, you focus on your batting and let go of the bowling. But you try being the best possible batsman out there. Sorry, that's a cricket reference that keeps kind of sprouting up in this podcast. I do have some more questions about Sikhism. And I come from a place of being from a Punjabi family. So every single Punjabi family is deeply connected to Sikhism in some form. It's either you've grown up going to Gurdwaras, you've grown up with a lot of Sikh friends. The one thing that I connected with when it came to Sikhism, other than the stuff you've already spoken about, I was always connected to the humility of it, the concept of Ikonkar. The other aspect that I was extremely connected to was the warrior spirit. Not to go out and be a part of war, but kind of to wake up with a warrior spirit every day. That no matter what difficulty is in front of me, if I wake up with the spirit of a warrior, it's something I could take on. And that's something that's helped me so much in my own journey of my career, in my own journey of even my meditation, my peace, that I will be able to overcome this, I'll be able to move forward. I'd love to know that warrior kind of aspect of Sikhism. Because even if we talk about the Sikh community in the modern day in India, all Indians owe a lot to the Sikh warrior community. Be it the independence movement, be it before that, when the country was undergoing invasions, the Sikhs were the first line of defense. They're the warriors that go to the forefront. So it was so inspirational for me to just be a Punjabi and kind of know that, okay, these are my brothers, who went there. they're all Indians as brothers. They, you could kind of look at that from many angles. But on a personal boyhood level, for me, the warrior aspect of everything that Guru Gobind Ji said was so kind of important in shaping up my own mind. So I'd love to know what you have to say about that warrior aspect of Sikhism.
It's a beautiful part of the tradition. And I just give you a little bit of the backdrop for those of your audience who don't know the story around why Sikhism came. It started with the birth of Guru Nanak in the 1400s. And in the early 1500s, India began to see invasion from Mughal emperors. So the real Mughal empire into India was around those 1500s, and it started with an emperor called Babur. And what you saw at that time was huge amounts of political divisions, a lot of segregation, a lot of tension. And really, he was acting like a dictator, coming in and mass killing so many people because he just believed that I am owed this country. I'll just come and take whatever I want. So if you just think about the geography of Punjab and where it started, that was where the Arab invasion started around from those sorts of areas. And so you had a group of people rise up and say, this is our home. You have to stand up for what you believe. These are our brothers. This is our families. So we have to stand up for these people. And that's really where the whole warrior aspect started from. You mentioned Guru Gobind Singh Ji. One of the key lessons that he teaches about being a warrior, he says, only when every other method of diplomacy has failed, only then should you pick up the sword. And sometimes we think that, sometimes you have quite a negative stereotype of a Sikh. He's always hot-headed and he's always ready to pick out the sword and ready to fight. But actually, that's not the real Sikh. The real Sikh, or the Khalsa, which is this warrior class of the Sikhs itself, is that there are essentially meditators first and warriors second. So when your determination to stand up for injustice, stand up against human rights abuses, when that comes from a sense of peace first, when that comes from a sense of equality that everybody deserves to live a peaceful life, when that comes from a sense of, I may not follow the same religion as you, I may not be of the same traditional background as you, but it's my job to defend your right to live however you want. Everybody deserves to live. And really, you can talk about the Human Rights Act and all of the human rights privileges that we allow ourselves in the world today. These things have been pioneered by some of these warriors who actually said, I'm here to defend you. But it doesn't come from agitation. It doesn't come from anger. It actually comes from love. So when you are loving, then you are in a position that you can help other people. And so the sword that all baptized Sikhs, which we call somebody who has taken Amrit, which is this spiritual initiation. The actual name of the sword that we carry is called kirpaan. And kirpaan means to give kirpa to others, to give blessings to others. It is, you are doing it out of your own grace, out of a sense of love for everyone else. So you never fight a war or anything like that out of a sense of agitation. The other thing that Guru Gobind Singh Ji taught was the Khalsa is one who fights a battle daily. Every single day, whether that doesn't mean you get up and you physically start fighting. It means every single day you need to see life as an opportunity to destroy negativity, to destroy injustice, even in your workplace, even in your family, even if there are things going around you, just with the people in your close circle. You need to be the person that says, right is right. These are the things that need to be done. This is the right way. And sometimes that's a big sacrifice. A lot of us, we don't want to do that. We don't want to stand up for what's right. We don't want to agitate anyone. I'm probably the least confrontational person. I hate getting into arguments with anyone. But sometimes it has to come from a place of, am I going to stand here and watch this injustice happen in front of my eyes? Can I be happy with myself allowing that to happen? And when you're agitated internally from the things that are going on around you, and you say, no, something has to be done. That's who a true warrior is. So a warrior is one who's coming from love, not from hatred or segregation. In fact, even the person that you are fighting against, so to speak, you're doing it with love. I'm doing it so that you may understand that there's a better way to live. I'm doing it out of blessing for you, that you need to understand that there's a better way to live. And I won't do that with a sword first. I'll do that first with my kindness, with my words, with my compassion towards you.
Well, Bhai, I would love to know a little bit more about the kripaa and the kadha. What is the significance of what non-Sikhs know about Sikhs? When we look at people with turbans, when we look at people with beards, I feel that Sikhs have a different understanding of it. And most of the outside world doesn't. So I'd love for you to highlight these outward elements of Sikhism. What does it actually represent?
First and foremost, it's really important to clarify that these things, the kirpan, the kada, the kesh, all of these things, these don't make you a Sikh. And it is not, a Sikh is somebody who has a turban on their head. A Sikh is not somebody who wears a kada. These are simply just spiritual reminders for a lifestyle. So I want a lot of people to understand that when I say the word Sikh, I don't mean a group of people from Punjab. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what a real Sikh is. A Sikh is not a Punjabi. They're not synonymous with each other. A Sikh is somebody who is willing to learn about their true self and willing to follow and practice all the things that are required to remember that this is all oneness. So a student of oneness is what we would define as a Sikh. Now, going back to where these sort of religious symbols or articles of faith, as some people describe them, where they come from, is these are really some of the practices that developed as the later gurus came in. So for those who are unaware, Guru Nanak was born in the 1400s, and he had 9 other successors. And the last one is the one that you've mentioned, Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And from about the time of the 5th and the 6th gurus, what we started to see was that there was a need for not just spiritual people, but spirituality and the warrior side of things to merge, because we were starting to see real oppression in India. So the 5th guru, some people may not be aware, is known as Guru Arjun Devji. He was actually a martyr. So the Mughals actually assassinated him. He was tortured because they were trying so hard to convert the rest of India that they were just even going after the spiritual masters. So the 5th guru was tortured, and he was assassinated by the Mughal elite. His son, Guru Har Gobind Ji, took on the guruship next. And he decided that I can no longer just be a meditator. Now I have to be a meditator with a sword. And so as it goes on, you begin to see that then his son was the 9th guru, then his grandson, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, was the 10th guru. So you began to see that these gurus were now spiritual and warriors at the same time. So they were the ones who were actually going and fighting some of these battles. They weren't just sitting in the back saying, you guys go, I'll stay back here. They say, no, we have to be at the forefront. So these gurus became warriors and meditators. So they were trying to teach that this is what the society needs right now. This is what the world needs right now. We need to be both. And so in doing that, they created a code of conduct that if you are to live this lifestyle, there's a couple of things that you need to do. And they gave us what they call the 5 Ks, basically 5 religious symbols that were something that you have to keep with you all the time. But they were really 5 reminders of different ways, different practices that you need to hold on to. So the first one is kada, which you'll see every Sikh will wear a bangle around their hand. But all of these have very deep spiritual meaning. And actually, we could spend a lot of time, but I'll very quickly go through those. So why does a Sikh wear a kada? Well, for multiple reasons. Number one, it's round. So it has no beginning and ending. And this is a reminder to you that actually God is always there. There is always a oneness. So you have to kind of see this as a way of reminding you that no matter what you do, when we were kids, we were taught that, whatever, if you stick your hand out to do something wrong, the kada will be there as a reminder. And there are so many beautiful parts of this symbolism. You see, this is intrinsic in Indian culture, that whenever a student historically would go and take on a guru, even if they were like a music teacher, some sort of teacher, the teacher would initiate and say that, I now accept you as my student, and they would wrap a string around their hand and say, I accept you as my student. So we see the Kara as the guru saying, I accept you as my student. And this is basically why every Sikh or anybody who identifies as a Sikh, even if they don't wear anything else, they basically say, this is my symbol that I belong to this guru, that I belong to this school of thinking, and I'm allowing this teacher to influence my life and teach me how to live. And in that same way, we were given a kirpan, which we talked about, which is the sword. We were given kesh, and we were told that if you keep your hair completely intact, so some people are very surprised when they look at me and I tell them that I've never cut my hair from the day that I was born. So they ask, oh, how long is your hair? How long is your beard? All these sorts of questions come about. And again, these are just reminders. What is the purpose of keeping long hair? You'll begin to see all spiritual masters in all different traditions have a long hair. And there's something very beautiful about watching your hair grow, watching the color change. And it's again another reminder, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you realize I'm not in control of this body. This body has its own life cycle. This body is doing its own thing. So when you watch your own hair grow and you watch it turn gray, you begin to realize this body is going to go one day. This is not me. So it's all part of the spiritual training. So you've got your kada, your kirpan, and you've got your kesh. And then you've got your kanga. Kanga is a little comb that you wear at the back of your head. And that's just a reminder of cleanliness. Some people say that it's to do with having a clean and holistic lifestyle, that you're always reminding yourself that I have to be clean in the world. I have to allow myself to be presentable in such a way. I can't just be somebody that sits in the jungle and meditates. You know, Guru Nanak was invited many times to join the spiritual elite around the world. Every time he went and spoke to spiritual masters, the spiritual masters would ask Guru Nanak, what is happening in the world? And Guru Nanak's reply was, the world is burning and the people who can help are sitting up here on a mountain meditating. And Guru Nanak rejected this idea that you need to go sit in a mountain or be a monk in order to be spiritual. He said, I'm going to show you that I can have a job, I can have a wife, I can have children and still reach spiritual peak. And the reason I'm going to do that is because that's what normal people do. Normal people are doing this. So I need to show them, how do you be spiritual doing normal things? And that's what that kanga represents, living a lifestyle where you're just carrying out your daily duties. And the final is a kashera. Kashera is these briefs, these shorts that you wear underneath your clothing. And again, that's about self-restraint. Your kashera is about, don't think that your life is just about trying to get as many relationships and sleep with as many partners. It's about having self-restraint and not thinking that life is all about going out there and just grabbing all the sensual experiences in the world. So all of these things are really practical reminders of how you can live your life, because there are so many instances in life where your mind does get tempted, your mind does go in the wrong directions, and you use these tools to remind you that this is not what I'm really here to achieve in life. And when you look at yourself in the mirror, the idea is you shouldn't see your own reflection. When you look in the mirror, you should see your guru's image. And when you see the guru in front of you, then you realize, oh, my life is about my guru. It's not about me. It's about my master teaching me how to really live, not about just me trying to figure out life in my own way. But it doesn't mean that if you don't have these things, that you're inferior in some way, or that you're not a good Sikh. Anybody from any background can be a Sikh. Guru Nanak's most beloved companion was somebody called Bhai Mardana, who was a Muslim. So Guru Nanak and Bhai Mardana traveled around the world for decades. And so his best friend was a Muslim. But you wouldn't call him a Muslim because he was also following Guru Nanak. So a Sikh is not somebody who is rejecting other religions and saying, I've given up other religions and I'm now going to only be a Sikh. That's not what Guru Nanak Sikhi is. You can be a Hindu who is following the Guru's tradition. You can be a Muslim who is following the Guru's tradition. And Guru Nanak went around the world and spoke to so many people. And he said, let me teach you what being a Muslim really means. And there are verses in his writings which are teaching people about how to do a namaz, how to do fasting properly. People are surprised that Guru Granth Sahib actually has this sort of information. And it teaches people from the Hindu traditions. This is how you really look at Krishna. This is what Shiva really means. This is how you celebrate Holi. And it's all about how do you use all of these as opportunities to understand your mindset. And all of these, they go back to, don't worry about the external. The external doesn't define who a Sikh is. These things do not define who a Sikh is. A Sikh is completely defined by the person who sorted out his own mind and sorted out his mindset.
Wow. Okay, this was the highlight of this episode for me. Just having this conversation with, these are questions that I've had in my mind since I was a little boy. And it's why I was waiting for this conversation for 2 years. But Satpal Bhai, I mean, I have to bring it back to 2022 and you and your mindset with the amount of spiritual knowledge you have already. I know you're someone who studies different faiths as well. I know you're someone who possibly accumulates a lot of knowledge. What have you learned about Sikhism at this stage of your life? And are you still going deeper into it? Are you still learning more?
I think what's very interesting is when you put yourself in a position where you are educating others, you actually become the best student at that point. You're forced to constantly reflect on your own life and look at, am I actually doing all the stuff that I say? And I put my hand up all the time, and I try to be as open and honest as I can on my own YouTube channel where I do all of my sort of education and my lectures. Is I never at any point want people to believe that I'm somehow spiritually uplifted or somehow I'm high. Yes, I've read a lot. Yes, I've retained a lot of information, and I'm able to, I think, quite well communicate it with people. But I'm constantly going through my own inner battles because we're human at the end of the day. I don't believe that I'm somehow spiritually superior. It's very interesting. I think it was back in maybe around 2010, 2011, I was invited to Sweden, and I was giving a talk. And when they were introducing me, they said, we have a spiritual teacher who's going to teach you. And the first thing that I said when I began my talk was, in my tradition, nobody is allowed to be a teacher. In my tradition, everybody is called a Sikh. And the word Sikh comes from the word Sishya, which means student. And so it's like you enroll in a school that you're never allowed to graduate from. I'm always a student. I'm always learning. Because at any point, if I say that I'm the teacher, ego comes back in. If you say that you're the teacher, what you said is, I've learned everything. And so my mindset is constantly that I am still trying to apply this in my daily life. And sometimes you fail so badly. Sometimes you get so angry, so stressed, so worked up in your own life. And you have to take a step back and you have to look and say, wow, where's all those teachings gone now? Where's all those things that you've been studying and teaching other people, and still you're falling down? And it really humbles you to realize, I'm nowhere. I haven't achieved anything. If I'm still doing this, I mean, being a parent is so difficult that so many times you just catch yourself getting frustrated at your kids because they're just doing something that you've tried to tell them 10 times, don't do that. And you see how easy it is for the mind to get worked up. And then you begin to realize, actually, I still haven't learned anything. I still need to practice this every day. And the only way that I've begun to understand what this practice means in my life, what meditation means in my life, is that I used to think that I've meditated so many times and I've done so many years of meditation. Why am I not spiritually higher anymore? Why haven't I achieved something even higher? And I realized quite recently that that's the wrong way of looking at it. The better way to look at it is like the way we brush our teeth. We never brush our teeth in the morning and think, why do I still need to brush my teeth? I've been brushing for so many years, and by now my teeth should be clean. We don't think like that. We all know that every day dirt accumulates, and so every morning you have to brush your teeth. And in the same way, I've begun to understand meditation in the same way, that every day my ego increases. Every day, my attachments to the world increases, and I fall down the trap of my own ego. And so a daily meditation is allowing to daily cleanse that way of thinking, to wipe the slate clean and remind myself, this is what life is really about. This is who you really are. And so I always say that I'm at ground zero. I'm at like level zero. I'm never any higher than level zero, because every day I find a way to get back down and fall down back to the ground again.
What kind of meditation do you do, and how long do you sit for?
For me, meditation, there are two things that I do. One is a formal practice where you sit down, you close your eyes, and you actually meditate. And the second is, how do you actually do this in your daily practice? And for me, there are, what the technique that Guru Nanak gives us is what he calls naam, which we can also call mantra, which is to use a wisdom word throughout your day that constantly reminds you of to let go of this idea of the sense of self. And this is, I think, what is slightly different about Guru Nanak's approach to mantra is that it's not a magic word. Sometimes people think of a mantra, they say, you don't need to know the meaning. The sound itself can take you somewhere. And Guru Nanak actually gives a different definition of naam and mantra. And he says that you need to understand what it actually means. And what I've begun to understand what naam means in my life is it's really got two levels to it. The first is, we would say Bhagwan ka naam lena, just to call out God's name. But once you do that, you're thinking of God as somewhere else. But that's the initial stage. That's how it begins for everyone. And what it simply starts with is to just, what I call naam, the first stage of naam is namo, namaskar karna. To just bow down. I bow to you. I bow to you. At everything, at every single thing that we see. You see the sunrise, I bow to you. I see other people. Look at this beautiful baby, I bow to you. Look at this traffic jam that I'm stuck in, I bow to you. Look at this really busy, crowded marketplace, I bow to you. So that's that initial stage of naam. And whether you sit and you do that in your practice as you're closing your eyes, or you're doing that as you go about your daily life, that I bow to you, I bow to you, I bow to you becomes so habitual. It becomes so much ingrained in your daily practice that it leads you to the second stage of what naam does, is naam goes from namo, namo, namo to name, name, name. There is no me, there is no me, there is no me. Even this, I bow to you, there is no me. And so for me, the whole purpose of meditation is to dissolve the sense of I am, dissolve the sense of ego, that I am something, that and this is the real difficulty of what I believe Guru Nanak's technique is that he's not allowing you to say meditation is for you to improve your career. Meditation is for you to get to call God. Most people do God as naam and mantra jap as God calling. It's almost as though you're sitting here and saying, come on, God, come on, God, come on, God. And then God doesn't come and they say, okay, I'll try again. I'll see you next week. I'll try again. So what I try to do with my own meditation is I am reminding myself to let go of the idea of me. And whether I do that sitting down or whether I'm doing it as I'm walking around is constantly just reminding me that life is not about me. This body is not about me. This situation that is happening right now is not about me. I'm here, I'm participating in it, but I'm not here as a real sense of self. It is God talking to God. This is oneness talking to oneness. And the amount of peace that brings in your life. And it doesn't mean that you don't do anything. It doesn't mean that you don't react or you don't act or respond to the certain situation. It means that you're able to just be in complete flow and harmony. And that to me is what the real meditation is trying to get you to, where you completely accept whatever life is doing, even if that means that you may need to respond in a particular way. I think a lot of the times when people have heard me talk online, they think that when I talk about acceptance, which is one of the big subjects that I try and share, is they think, well, you know, I've got a really difficult person in my home right now who's abusing me. Do I need to accept that? And they think that acceptance means inaction. And that's not the same. They're not the same thing. And for me, my meditation is constantly just trying to remind myself that whatever is happening in life, I'm okay with it, even if it means that I need to do something about it. I'm coming from a sense of peace So for me, meditation is something that is just happening 24 hours a day when I remember to do it. That's the goal, to try and be that in that space 24 hours a day. But I'm not stopping myself from meditating. One of the best experiences I used to have when I was sitting on the train going to work every day, going into London, and I'm experiencing these deep senses of joy and bliss and euphoria. And I'm looking around me and everybody else is on their iPhones and reading the newspaper and everybody looks miserable. And I'm thinking, wow, this is possible wherever anything is happening. And I think that's what you begin to realize, that meditation has the ability to lift you up in all scenarios of life. And I think that's, to me, where you've begun to understand that meditation isn't something that you just do for 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day, or even if you do it for an hour. It's the real world application where meditation really counts. And that's what I try to practice as much as possible.
So, Bhai, just speaking to you left me feeling extremely calm by the end of this 1 hour or so that we've recorded. I asked you a lot of my personal questions, and that for me is what I save for these spiritual podcasts. So while I have a ton of questions about Sikhism, about the universe, about how to go about your daily life from that place of the Sikhi thought process, I think we'll save that for another episode, because I want people to go back to the beginning of this episode and reabsorb some of it, because some of the stuff you've spoken about is a little heavy. And I feel that with these kind of podcasts, people do need to retain things to really kind of get the nectar out of this. So just want to conclude this episode with me bowing down to you genuinely from my heart. I know that I know the humble way that you look at life, but I do feel that you are a big kind of channel for God's work to be done in this world. So it was an honor hosting you on the show, sir.
Really, it was an absolute pleasure as well. I said to you offline that I'm so inspired by the work that you do. And for you to introduce spirituality to a younger generation for whom atheism is now the norm, for a lot of people to just begin to understand that spirituality is applicable to everyone. It is for the atheist and the so-called religious as well. And I think that's where you and I are working towards the same goal. And I'm genuinely humbled by the fact that you've even invited me on the show. It's a real inspiration just to be speaking to you, and your ability to connect with other people by being so raw, being so honest, being so vulnerable. I look at the stuff that you put out on your podcast and I say, wow, I don't think I could be that brave. So it's actually such a joy for me to speak to you as well. I would love to be invited back on the podcast if you'll have me, if your audience will have me. It'll be an absolute pleasure as well. Thank you so much.
I think there's hundreds of episodes that we're supposed to do together. And Satpal Bhai, I'm hoping to have you in person for the next one. I'm sure we're going to do countless episodes, but that's the number of questions I have. So genuinely, thank you for being a part of this, sir. And I hope
my absolute pleasure.
I hope this conversation goes out to the right minds, the people who need this. So thank you.
Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you benefited from that. If you'd like to help us create more spiritual content, then head over to our website nanaknaam.org/donate and think about setting up a regular monthly donation. We're a 100% non-profit organization, so all the donations that you give us go directly into the charity and that help us to create and share Gurmat spiritual wisdom.
जो सदा हमारे बच्चा से यस तुझ करे राख ले हो मोहे राख हारे साहिब संत साहिब प्यार करे देखी भी चार करे मरते तुम करे असतुल्ला सांपर के सारे कर फूला संतन दुख पाए ते दुखी सुख पाए साधन के सुखी एक की मीर निशाने कट कट के मन कट की जाने नमोद कर तरा कर तारा बदन श्रेष्ठ सब तारे आपनी
ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ। ਹਾਂਜੀ ਆ ਬਹੁਤ ਨਜ਼ਾਰਾ ਆਇਆ ਜੀ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਹੈ ਨਗਰ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੇਚਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸਹੀ ਹੈ ਬੋਲਿਆ ਬੋਲਿਆ
said we could get involved in too. There's still plenty of buses left, but we got to make sure the one we have. I don't know if they're all going to Malton or there are buses going to Malton. I reckon we will ask. Yeah, because that would suck straight up.
ना नहीं ऊपर हो जाए
I'm not. Oh, wait,
इन्हीं की कृपा के सजे हम हैं पढ़िया लिखिया मैं नहीं बस मैं पढ़ना नहीं चाहता विद्या ना पढ़ो बात ना जाने कबीरदास जी जब अपना घर का सूत्र बेचन गया उन्होंने दान कर दिया सारे उन्होंने झल्ला कहते सी जो बौरे का मतलब झल्ला कबीरदास जी कह रहे हैं मेरे बाबा मैं बौरा मेरे बाबा मैं बौरा मेरे बाबा मैं बौरा मेरे बाबा मैं बौरा खलक से आनी मैं बौरा खलक से आनी मैं बौरा आज के समय सानू कोई कवे चला ਆਪਾਂ ਡਾਂਗ ਚੁੱਕ ਕੇ ਲੜਨ ਨੂੰ ਤਿਆਰ ਕਬੀਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਕਬੀਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਝੱਲਾ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਬੀਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਮੈਂ ਬੌਰਾ ਸਭ ਖਲਕ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਚੰਗੇ ਸਭ ਖਲਕ ਸਿਆਣੀ ਮੈਂ ਬੌਰਾ ਮੈਂ ਬਿਗੜਿਓ ਬਿਗੜੇ ਮਨਹਾਰਾ ਮੈਂ ਬਿਗੜਿਓ ਬਿਗੜੇ ਮਨਹਾਰਾ ਮੈਂ ਬਿਗੜਿਓ ਬਿਗੜੇ ਮਤ ਆਉਰਾ ਮੈਂ ਬਿਗੜਿਓ बिगड़े मत औरा मेरे बाबा मैं बौरा मेरे बाबा मैं बौरा बौरा मैं बौरा मैं बौरा मैं बौरा मैं बौरा मैं बौरा आप न बौरा राम कियो बौरा आप न बौरा राम कियो बौरा बौरा राम कियो बौरा मेरे बाबा मैं बौरा मेरे बाबा मैं बौरा मेरे बाबा मैं बौरा मेरे बाबा मैं बौरा अपनी मत खोई मैं भी गयो अपनी मत खोई
Premier, welcome to Nagar Kirtan and congratulations.
Yes, well, thank you so much. It's great to be here once again. We come every single year, have a great time, and I just want to wish everyone all the best. Health, happiness, and prosperity.
Yes, we are riding too.
It's our riding. It's beautiful to be here.
Coordination riding.
I love it.
It's good weather here.
Yes, absolutely.
What message you want to give to community?
Well, again, I just want to wish everyone all the best. Health, happiness, and prosperity.
Thank you.
Thank you.